Okay, Nick, you love Iowa State.
Yeah.
I like Iowa State. I went for the first time, Jack Tri Stadium, last year for Farmageddon. It was awesome. What's not awesome? Iowa State ranked 70th in the country in transfers in versus transfers out. They lost 48 guys. They gained 54 guys. But if you asked on three, when it comes to their overall rating and the average of those players, Iowa State lost more talent than they gained, though they have 6 new players compared to what they had. Utah, this is wild. Utah, when it comes to their composite rankings, what they lost versus what they gained, 69th in the country. Michigan, 68th. Those are 2 big brands that people have in the top 15, top 20 going into next season. How worried should Iowa State fans be? How excited should Big 12 fans be for teams that want to compete? They want to beat Iowa State when it comes to what the Cyclones have done the last 2 months since Matt Campbell said goodbye.
Yeah. Well, these numbers, I'm not going to lie to you, like they're ugly, right? And what you're looking at is literally just the transfers in versus transfers out. On three over here has on the very far right of this, the adjusted NIL value, and Iowa State is claiming per this graph to be down $3.5 million. That's not great either. Like there's a lot to this graph that is very, very bad. And when you look at the index score, the difference between Utah and Iowa State is almost 40 points. It's like 34 points or something like that. So there's a wide gap between 70 and 69. There is a lot to be terrified of when you're looking at these numbers for sure. But when you talk about what Jimmy Rogers, first off, had to work with and what he did with that kind of runway, I guess is one word you could use, there is something to be excited about. There is a clear and definitive effort to make the offensive and defensive lines better for Iowa State. And I think, obviously when you look at the transfers in versus transfers out, there aren't as many players coming in, but you brought in quality offensive linemen that don't cost that much. So the adjusted NIL value, I'm not too worried about because offensive linemen, like it or not, aren't as expensive as a great wide receiver or as a defensive end. You brought in a transfer quarterback from the Sun Belt who, let's just call it how it is, isn't going to be like bringing over a Bryce Underwood, right? He's just going to be slightly cheaper. I believe his head coach or quarterback coach Keith Heckendorf came over as well. There's going to be that's going to go into that equation. Iowa State found a way to bring in quality guys at a low cost, which was the most important thing that this program could have done up until this point. Jimmy Rogers has earned an A+ from me. The question is, which I'm sure you're going to ask, what do they do with those guys, right? Can they actually turn out Big 12 wins? And if you look at their schedule, I think it lends itself to a really solid first season. Now, as far as, we're unlocked on Big 12 right now, other Big 12 teams, I don't have a great answer for you. This team could absolutely flop against the top competition, or they could absolutely battle in the trenches, win games that way, and keep it close and have that ball at the last second type of deal. So, me personally, not concerned right now. I think we've made the right moves up until this point, but there is definitely an element to this of like, they just don't have any big guys coming in. They brought in like 2 offensive linemen from SEC schools, and outside of that, like a Michigan State wide receiver. Like, am I supposed to be scared of that? That's a valid take too.
Sure. So let's get into the Iowa State schedule. I want to go game by game here in a second, but first, for the Cincinnati fan that's listening, for the Utah, Arizona, Colorado fans that are listening, TCU fans, what do they need to know about Jimmy Rogers and what he is bringing to Iowa State?
He's bringing that Midwest mentality, which is something that I think Iowa State absolutely needed to keep in their identity. Matt Campbell talked so much about the 6 hours surrounding Iowa State. Jimmy Rogers may be coming over from Washington State, but spent a lot of his time at South Dakota State, right? Played there, coached there, started his head coaching career there. So he understands how to recruit this area. And he, to that offensive line point I made, knows how to recruit offensive linemen from Elkader, Iowa, or, from the Northwest corner of the state that nobody's heard of, not even myself, and I'm a native Iowan. Like he knows how to get those guys in the building and to transform them into top tier linemen, which is super big. And he's a huge defensive minded guy. So him, Jesse Bobbitt, that defensive coordinator. I'm excited about Ross Watson coming over from Toledo. I thought he was going to be the co-DC, ended up not being that, but there's a clear emphasis on the defensive side of the ball as well. So what do you need to know about Jimmy Rogers? He's going to beat you in the trenches, and he's not going to need to score a whole lot of points to beat you because there's a huge emphasis on that defense. And so I like where the head, kind of is pointed towards for Iowa State here, where the mentality is. I think we nailed that part of the hire.
Jimmy Rogers brings a air of winning. He wins.
Yes.
He's won. And I like that. Look, I mean, hey, Chris Kleiman at Kansas State, he wins. He won. Matt Campbell, before he came, he wins. He won, And those guys, as much as Kansas State fans hated Chris Kleiman, like, he wins. He won.
Can't argue that.
Even when it sucked, even when it was hard to win, he still won games. And Jimmy Rogers at least has that. Willie Fritz, he wins. Houston, he's winning. Like these are the guys that haven't lost in their careers. Curt Cignetti is an example of that. The extreme example, but still an example no less. And that's what Iowa State's looking for from Jimmy Rogers. So let's do it. I mean, Southeast Missouri, great. We tune up, we win in Ames. That Iowa game, circled. In Iowa City, on the road, Iowa wants revenge. Couple of years where they have not beaten Iowa State. That, I mean, if you ask Vegas right now, Iowa's favored by probably 10. Is that fair?
Yes and no, right? Like Iowa, I think, is probably in a better spot as a program right now. But I'm going to tell you until the ends of the earth that game will always be a 3 to 7 point game. There might be a late touchdown to push it to 2 scores, but the Cyhawk game is always going to be super close. So I'm actually, as much as I could see someone saying that's going to be a blowout, I'm not worried. I think it's going to play out like a normal Cyhawk game.
Yeah, 17 to 14. Nope, 17 to 15 because 14 is too clean. 18-15 is the final score. Utah at home, West Virginia at home. That's kind of the saving grace, the early part of the Big 12 slate here. You get 2 teams that come to Ames. I have them each kind of even in Big 12 play next year. I think West Virginia is an 8-win team. I think Utah is an 8-win team. And do those 8 wins come against Iowa State? Is this a soft enough way to start Big 12 play because you're at home?
I think it's the softest way you could start Big 12 play. Like you'd rather, looking at the rest of their schedule, you'd rather start at home against Utah and West Virginia than you would on the road at Arizona and Baylor or something, right? So sure. Is it perfect? Probably not. Like we don't get to square up against Ames Middle School, for the 3rd game of the season, but we're definitely looking at a relatively easy start to the Big 12. So I think for 4 of those games being home to start your year, you could easily go 3-2 through those. No problem. And
3-2 gets you halfway to bowl eligibility. That is the goal. Then BYU on the road, Arizona on the road.
Bye weekend there.
Yeah, with the bye week. I think that's where the rubber meets the road, and Iowa State really looks at its first and its biggest taste of adversity.
Absolutely. No, I 100% agree. I think if you're looking at probably 3-2 going into that BYU game, there's a chance you shock the world, but maybe not. You're 3-3, go into a bye, hard reset, and I think that Arizona game is gettable. So you come out of that bye with a win over Arizona, you're literally 2 wins away from bowl eligibility in your first year. I think that's a huge win.
Yeah, I think bowl eligibility would be the goal for Iowa State. The rest of the way, Oklahoma State at home, that's winnable. We don't know. I think Oklahoma, they are an 8 or 9 win team in my book. We don't know yet. Baylor, they should suck, but they have DJ Lagway, so you'll see. They should suck everywhere else, but they have DJ Lagway. Cincinnati, that is a very winnable game. I think they will regress and ultimately fire Scott Satterfield. UCF, very winnable. Kansas State, first-year head coach. There is still a ceiling, considering that, listen again to those teams. Oklahoma State missed a bowl game last year. Baylor missed a bowl game last year. Cincinnati lost their bowl game to a service academy. UCF missed a bowl game last year. Kansas State opted out of a bowl game because they went 6-6 and lost their head coach. There is a ceiling, given the way the season begins at home in Big 12 play and ends relatively easy when you take the team's records from last year, where this Iowa State Cyclones team has a ceiling of 8 or 9 wins. And that's a crazy thing to say, but the schedule is not that bad.
No, I've been saying that since the schedule came out, and everyone's like, what? There's no way. There's literally, if you look at these games, game by game, as we just did, there is a way. There absolutely is, especially if this team can get rolling early. Like if they start through those first 3-4 games, they lose at Iowa, they lose at against Utah, they lose against West Virginia. You're 2-3 and you've only beat SEMO and Bowling Green. Maybe the momentum isn't there to get to 9 wins. That's totally valid. But if they can start the season the way that it's laying out to, and then you take a tough loss to BYU, that's fine. You have a bye week right after that. Like it all lends itself to a very solid first year of Jimmy Rogers. And like I said at the beginning of today's show, I think it's huge for Iowa State to have a successful year next year. Like for the state of the program over the next 5 years, I hate to say it, but like this is a pivotal year for them.
Yeah, that's Nick Maravets at Nick_Marv. Find him covering Iowa State every single day on his show. This has been, and it always will be, a crossover Locked On. Thanks for making our shows your first listen every single day. Cyclones and Dose Grande.